The owner of this truck thought it was a bit too expensive to buy new taillights, so he improvised with some red party cups instead. Cheap as hell, brother! The owner of this car came in because one of their tires kept deflating after they had a flat fixed not too long ago at a different shop. This truck rolled in after the customer's friend had helped him fix his steering because he apparently didn't want any shop to rip him off, but had to come in anyway. This Ford F-150 rolled in because the radio and cabin fan would randomly turn themselves on after the customer had done some wiring work under the hood a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, looks almost brand new. And this customer came in with quite the oil leak after their uncle had done an oil change for them 2 weeks prior but had forgot to put an O-ring on the oil filter. And this is what happens when you keep hitting those curbs faster than normal speeds. Customer states, hit a log on the road and now my car's limping. Turned out to be a broken upper control arm. This Lexus RX rolled in for its first oil change since 2009. Apparently, the customer thought that the car ran fine and so she didn't bother with any maintenance other than filling it up with gas and washer fluid. This car came in because it wouldn't start after it had been sitting for a while in the customer's yard. Turns out that the car had some new owners that thankfully were okay and got relocated to a new safer home. This customer had changed his own wheel bearings, rotors, and calipers, but only got about 3 blocks down the street when this happened. Customer states, asked the wife to top up the oil before she used the truck to go to work, but she got the wrong can. The owner of this car rolled in because they said that it shifted really poorly. Once the mechanic opened up the transmission, he found all this plastic debris floating around in there. This customer came in complaining about a jerky feel and strange sounds when braking. Customer states, car is really hard to stop, even though I just installed new brakes. This customer rolled in with their Mitsubishi Outlander complaining about a steering issue after their son had taken the car out for a fishing trip with his friends. Gotta love that Wawa, wet ass water pump. This Honda CR-V came in on a tow truck after the owner had hit a bowling ball that had fallen out of a truck in front of them on the highway. The owner of this Honda came in because he said that he finally wants it fully reconditioned. The mechanic said that he wasn't sure if that was even possible at this point. This Infiniti came in with some brake issues. Customer states, my Jeep has started to lean backwards ever since I hit a pothole 2 weeks ago. Please advise. This is what the mechanic discovered once he had it on the lift. This customer's Tundra was in because it had started to pull to one side when driving on the freeway. The owner of this Jeep Liberty came in because their 4-wheel drive had stopped working after their grandson had borrowed it for a couple of months. The mechanic found the front drive shaft to be mysteriously missing. And the owner of this car came in saying, I hit a curb going a bit faster than normal, but that's probably alright, right? Customer came in saying that they were driving home from work when they suddenly heard a loud metallic sound and the car just stopped. Apparently, they had recently let a friend do an oil change for them, but they had apparently forgot to refill the engine with new oil afterwards. Customer came in saying that they think they hit something last night on their way home, but they're not quite sure and came in to have it checked out. The owner of this car came in because his braking power still hadn't improved much, even after he replaced brake calipers and pads by himself. Apparently, he had forgotten to install new discs. The owner of this car had just bought it at an auction for $8,100 and was apparently told it only needed a new transmission. But this is how it looked like underneath. The owner of this car had tried installing a new sport suspension kit on their car, but had to come in because, well, it wasn't super successful. Choo choo. And the owner of this truck was on their way home from work when they suddenly heard a loud metallic noise from the back, and then the truck stopped. This Chevy owner came in saying that it had gotten really hard to drive in a straight line on the highway after another shop had done some work on the steering linkage. This 2003 Toyota 4Runner came in because the owner said that it had started to handle like a boat the past few months. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you get that premium garage support. This Chevy Silverado came in because the customer said that the cab feels loose when driving on the highway, and this is how the cab mounting bolts looked like when the mechanic had it on the lift. Seems like a perfectly acceptable amount of play. And this car came in with the milkshake of milkshakes. This car had some starting issues after the owner had installed some new extra lights by himself. Customer states, "My antenna needs a blue pill." This customer rolled in because their car had turned into a steam train after they had topped up their coolant with water while on a long road trip across the country. The mechanic found that the car will most likely need an engine replacement. Customer states, "Whenever I accelerate, there's this chopping sound and the car eventually feels really sluggish." If you have any idea what might be causing this, let us know in the comments below. Customer came in saying that something just flew by their car as they were driving on the highway. Turned out to be the speed limit sign. This 2004 Kia Sorento rolled in with quite the exhaust leak and plenty of clunking sounds after the owner had watched one too many episodes of MacGyver. Customer states, thinks there's a gnome smoking Winston's behind one of his mirrors. And this car rolled in with some starting issues after the owner had been practicing his wiring skills on it. This customer came in saying, "It's not really a problem, but sometimes my brakes squeak pretty badly. Could you check it out and make sure it's nothing serious?" Customer came in complaining about a weird sound when shifting after another shop recently flushed out the transmission, but by the looks of it, had forgotten something quite important. This truck came in with a clunking sound after the customer's son had replaced the ball joints together with his friends. And this car came in on a tow truck after the customer hit a sinkhole that had suddenly formed in front of them while driving to the grocery store. Well, hey there. Looks great. And this Mazda came in with a bad engine knock after the customer had installed a new radiator together with his best friend a few weeks before. And these mechanics were just about to work on this car's suspension when they made a shocking discovery. And this customer came in and said, "Hit a larger pothole and then I heard a loud boing sound." And this almost brand new SUV came in because it already had a broken suspension link after the customer had just picked it up from the dealership 5 days prior. This customer came in because they had a clunking sound while driving after they had installed some new wheels by themselves. And this car was in for an oil change when the mechanic noticed the state of the undercarriage and that the customer had installed their very own underglow kit. Customer states, tried lowering the car by himself, but it went a bit so-and-so. And this car came in because it kept overheating and making a whining noise after the customer had the water pump fixed at a different shop. This car came in because the customer had tried changing his own brake pads, but had accidentally put the backing plates on so they were rubbing against the discs, which caused quite the problem. Customer states, every time I go grocery shopping, the car almost sits on the ground. Please advise. Yummy. And this customer came in saying that their car has been handling like a boat for a while and wanted it fixed. Customer came in complaining about a ticking sound coming from the engine and also said that he does all regular maintenance on the car himself. The owner of this car had their cat stolen a few months ago, so they decided to replace it with a fence post. Because why not? This car was in because the customer said that it feels like massaging a big marshmallow pillow with his foot when braking. The mechanic discovered that someone had installed drum brakes on the right side and disc brakes on the left. Well, that's pretty much brand new. This bike engine was in because the owner wanted to know if it was worth repairing or not. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Customer states, there's some vibration in the steering wheel when driving on the highway. This mobile mechanic was called in to come help a customer who said they'd been driving on the highway when suddenly feeling the car slipping away from them. The owner of this car came in for an alignment, but this is what the mechanic found. Customer states, I think something's leaking. Can you have a look? And this customer had apparently changed his own brakes, all by himself, but had to come in because of a pretty bad clunking noise. This car apparently came with a built-in inspection window. And this customer had lowered his car, all by himself. Customer came in complaining about their newly installed radio changing channels on its own and wanted it looked at. Customer states, drove over the neighbor's garden gnomes on my way to work. This customer's Jeep came in because it has a noise from the front drivetrain and the traction control light is always on, after the customer had installed a lift kit on it together with a friend the weekend prior. And this Kia came in because it had a bit of an engine knock ever since its last oil change during the pharaonic times. And this car was in because the owner had a loud sound coming from the wheels after they had let another shop do some suspension work on it. And this car came in because the customer said the brakes were loud as hell and that the car handled like a bag of potatoes when driving on smaller roads and he couldn't figure out why. What the customer forgot to mention was that he was also a hobbyist mechanic that had done all the repairs on the car himself. And if you work a lot on cars, you know that 10 mils have a tendency to fall into black holes and show up again in random, unexpected places, such as behind a wheel well liner. And here's how you know it's a Chrysler Pentastar 3.6 liter. Customer states, accidentally drove over a sign because it said OP on it. And this customer had apparently been driving behind a logging truck for a bit too long. And this customer had filled their car with the wrong kind of ethanol. Customer states, was doing 90 on the highway when I suddenly heard a loud pop. And this car had said its very last knock-knock joke. This customer came in with their motorbike saying it was impossible to get it running after they had borrowed it to a friend over the weekend. Turns out that the clutch was totally destroyed. And this customer came in saying, it's really hard to keep the car on the road, please advise. And this customer rolled in with their car looking like this after they had borrowed it to their youngest son, who had just gotten his license 3 weeks prior. And this car came in with a bit of a coolant leak. This car came in on a tow truck and the customer said, my son borrowed the car to go fishing with his friends, but I had to go pick them up because they had gone off-road racing instead. This car came in because the owner said somebody had glued the washer fluid cap shut because it was nearly impossible to open. And if your dipstick ever comes out like this, you're probably in some expensive trouble. This car was in because the manual parking brake had started to identify as an automatic. This Honda rolled in after the customer complained about it wanting to steer by itself. Turned out to be a bad steering rack that needed replacement. And this is eventually what happens when you don't slow down before them speed bumps. This car was in after the owner complained about a small steering wheel vibration. The owner of this car apparently thinks oil changes are a scam and hadn't had one since he bought the car new, which was 8 years ago. And this customer had installed some new brake calipers using a YouTube tutorial, but hadn't quite watched to the end and had to come in because he needed some help from the pros. This customer was on a road trip to the mountains and was taking it extra slow on the way down. The owner of this Genesis G70 had it in for an oil change at a quick lube shop, but they had apparently improvised a bit when reinstalling the underplate, and the customer now had a rattling noise at idle. Customer states, "You won't believe how she looks underneath. I've kept her in a heated garage since new." Yummy. And this customer came in saying, "I don't know why, but my brakes are squeaking a lot more than normal." The mechanic found that the brake pads hadn't been changed since the car rolled out of the factory 15 years ago. The owner of this car came in after they had tried to fix a clunk sound by themselves, but it wasn't super successful. The owner of this car had apparently hit a hole in the road when this happened. This car was just in for a new thermostat when the mechanics caught something before it turned into a really expensive problem for the customer. Customer states, "Brakes aren't as firm as they used to be. Can you check it out?" Customer states, "I feel every inch of every bump and hole I drive over. Please advise." And this customer had done some brake work on his car and came in to make sure everything looked alright. This car came in because it had quite the leak. And this Toyota truck came in with almost no oil in it, and you don't even have to check that dipstick to know. And you know, electrical tape is great for many things. Fixing brake lines, however, is not one of them. Customer states, "Loud noise when braking. Please advise." Customer states, "Grandson tried installing new speakers in his car, but door is now really hard to open." And the owner of this car came in saying, "I think something's wrong with my car. It feels different." The owner of this BMW was in for a new servo pump, but forgot to mention to the mechanics that he also installed a lowering kit on it by himself the week before. This car rolled in because the owner said it had started to run rough and occasionally wouldn't start after it had been parked on the driveway for a few weeks. The owner of this car rolled in saying that he can't have automatic braking turned on because the car keeps braking at random all the time, and he thought it might be a software issue. And this customer came in saying, "I don't know what the hell's going on, but the car keeps pulling to the right. Can you check it out?" This customer was in for an oil change but never mentioned anything about the state of the tires. Nice. This customer came in saying that she had let her father-in-law change the head gasket not too long ago to save some money, but that it hadn't gone entirely to plan and that the car now makes a strange sound when driving longer distances. This truck came in after the owner said, "I'm just trying to get into my truck, but the doorstep sounds like it's mocking me." This customer came in with their Jeep complaining about a noise when driving, and this is what the mechanics found. Customer states, "I get this strange rattle whenever I go over 40 miles an hour." Customer came in saying that they hit a hole in the road and heard a scraping sound and wanted the mechanic to have a look underneath. And this customer had purchased a new set of tires last year, but had to come in with a tire leak after having driven past a construction site. Customer states, did the last oil change by himself not too long ago. This customer had just purchased this Volkswagen Beetle from 2006, but came in wondering if it's supposed to sound like this when accelerating. The owner of this car came in saying that his car gets way too excited when he fills it up. And this car came in with a bit of a leak. And this customer's favorite movie villain is the Joker. The owner of this car came in because they're getting a thumping sound when turning and the steering wheel wobbles a lot. When you hit the brakes so hard, they actually break. And the owner of this car wanted to save some money on wheel bearings, so they installed used ones by themselves, but had to come in because of a clunking sound. This car came in because the owner complained about a steering wheel vibration after they had balanced their wheels at a different shop a week prior. And this wheel hub has definitely seen some happier days. This guy had been out with his all-wheel drive car on a little hiking trip but got stuck in a deep mud puddle and had to come into the shop on a tow truck because one of the diffs had seized. This GMC Terrain came in with quite the noise from the engine bay. The mechanic found there to be very little oil left in the engine, but after a quick oil and filter change, the car ran much better. And this customer had installed an extra backup light, all by himself. Yup, looks perfect. The owner of this truck came in for one new ball joint, but he ended up needing two. And this customer had installed his very own cat anti-theft system, but had to come in because he now has an annoying sound at all speeds. And this car had some trouble keeping all the gas in. Customer states his pickup leaks washer fluid. Nothing has been done to the vehicle other than the customer installing some rock lights a few days ago. Here's another example of just how much mechanics and car engineers love each other. The owner of this car came in saying that his cabin fan has started sounding like Tarzan screaming for help. Customer states, my truck only goes to the left, please advise. And this customer came in with their Seat for an oil change, but the mechanics flat out refused to work on it because of the awful smell coming from the interior. And this mechanic wanted to share an old European saying with us. With oxen you learn to pull, with donkeys you learn to bray, with pigs you get dirty, and with idiots you just get stupid. And this car came in with a pretty big leak. The owner of this Hyundai Sonata came in after a cigarette butt had lit a piece of a napkin on fire and almost burnt the whole car out. The customer had apparently smoked right before spending an entire afternoon at IKEA with his wife. Customer states, slight vibration in steering wheel. Looks great. Customer states, my brake pedal thinks it's a Tommy gun. Customer came in saying, my wipers act like two younger siblings. Please advise. Customer states, hit a blown out tire on the highway and now I have a strange knock every time I hit a bump in the road. Customer came in complaining about their air vents sounding like a Spitfire airplane. And when Shrek piss starts coming out of your car, you're probably overdue for maintenance. And this customer rolled in because they had a whining noise coming from their engine. Customer states, hit what seemed to be a stick horse on my way to work, but damn thing must have been made of titanium. And these mechanics were just trying to check the oil when this happened. This car makes its very own truffle chocolate. Customers said that they apparently hit a curbside faster than intended because it was a foggy morning and they didn't see it. Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. This car was in because the customer said it, quote, handled like a 89-year-old lady trying to do a pole dance. This Buick Century rolled in because the customer suspected the water pump to be broken, but apparently someone had just installed the belts in the wrong way, which had then bypassed the water pump completely. And this car was in for an oil and filter change, but the customer first had to explain to the mechanic how he would actually start it, as it had a special starting mechanism. The owner of this car had borrowed it to his grandson who went camping over the weekend, but when he got it back it just wouldn't start. And this customer wanted to drive their tires to the very last mile. And this customer had tried to install a rear hitch all by himself. This car came in because it had a pretty loud whining noise at 2,700 RPMs. Customer came in with their old Volvo saying it had gotten really hard to get in gear, and this is what the mechanics found. Looks great. The owner of this car came in complaining about a humming noise and vibrating seats when driving on the highway. Customer states, bought the car last night and it fired up fine, but now I have this weird squeaky sound every time I try to crank it. The owner of this car complained about it being bumpier than normal after their son had borrowed it for the weekend to go see his girlfriend. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching, and until next time.